Welcome everybody to another adventure with Fan the Flames Live. Today I am talking with Camilla Fellis Arnold, and we also have her dog in the background doing some beautiful barking and joining in the conversation. So here
He'd
at
love
Fan,
to join in.
I bet he would. He could join in. I'm sure he's got something to say about this topic, this subject. It's
Come here.
lovely. So here at Fan the Flames, we believe that everybody has the potential, the spark to grow, to develop, to become something more. And I enjoy having conversations with people that help other people in terms of fanning other people's flames, but also talking to people that fan their own flames too. And myself and Camilla today, we're going to talk a little bit about the kind of the zone of genius, as Camilla describes it. And we're also going to talk about coming from that place of joy. So, Camilla, why don't you say a few words about yourself before we dive on in?
I'd love to if I can be heard over my dog. I'm so sorry about Teddy. He's just got really, really excited. Teddy, come here. Do you want to come join me? No, he does not. I am so sorry. A little bit embarrassing. I try so hard to keep him quiet. But yeah, so I'm Camilla Fellis Arnold. I do creativity and writing coaching, and it's been quite a journey to get there. I used to work as a freelance graphic designer. I did wedding photography for a little while, which was a very crazy 2 years, and that stopped due to some panic attacks. I was at a wedding and had a panic attack. I was all on my own, and it just meant that I felt I couldn't do the weddings to the best of my abilities. Because Teddy, thank you. Because it was so much pressure with taking photos of someone's really special day. And so I finished that. And then what I did is went back to graphic design. And I'm really, really sorry about him. He just will not stop.
All good. It's all good. It's life. This is what life is right now. So it's all fine.
This is the thing, though. I went back to working from home and we got this dog. And honestly, he kind of sent me on this journey because he was so different to my other dog that I've got, who's sitting here really, really nicely, like a little angel. And I used to ask the universe, like, what do I do about him? Because he just took all my knowledge of dog training and I didn't know what to do. I just was at the end of my tether, I suppose. And it kind of sent me on this transformational journey, I suppose. So I kind of looked at joy and all kinds of things. And he's not creating a lot of joy for me at the moment right now. But it is what it is. And here we are.
I'm sure anybody listening or watching, I'm sure they're getting a lot of joy listening to us trying to maneuver or work with Teddy in the background. So you talked a little. So there were two things that you said there that sort of caught my attention. One was the creative writing, and one was the panic attacks. And I guess I was just curious as to what your journey was with those, because I have worked with people that have anxiety or have had moments of what they might call panic or panic attacks, and we've explored breath work, visualization work, and things like that around those moments. And I'm just curious as to what was your journey around that, and how did you come out the other side, or is there another side around that, or is it just a kind of a continuum, I guess?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a long journey, I suppose. Panic attacks were not fun. They just kind of came out of nowhere. And I just, at first I didn't really know what they were, if I'm being honest. And it did make me really wonder if I could ever be creative again, if I could ever enjoy life again, because it's really all consuming. And particularly we started to have more issues with, or I had more issues with anxiety because we had some neighbour issues, which is why my little dog is so het up over any noise he hears. They were targeting him when he was a puppy.
Right.
So it just really compounded everything. And I just thought, if this is all there is to life, then what is the point? It's just not fun. My creative work was just to pay the bills. And you just kind of think, if this is all there is to it, then why? And it really kind of compounded itself last year when I got burnt out. I think it was in the summer, and I had several nights where I sat there watching TV and just burst into tears over absolutely nothing. My husband just kind of looked at me like, "Are you okay?"
Mm.
And he didn't know quite what to do with me the first night. And then the second night it happened, he's sort of looking like, something's really wrong here. And the third night he sat me down and he said, "I think you're burnt out. You need to just take a week off," which I did. And I just rested. I slept a lot, did the bare minimum of emails, and just said, "You know what? I will look at this later. I'm really sorry." But then I sat there thinking, well, all the self-care that you can do, you can go read all these articles online about, have bubble baths and face masks. I mean, that's lovely, but for me, it wasn't going to get to the root of the problem. It wasn't going to solve things for me. So I kind of thought to myself, how can I really deal with this? And I came back to the question of, and I think a lot of people come to this, about being happy with life. Are you happy with life? And if you feel burnt out, then in my opinion, I was thinking, I'm probably not very happy with my life as is. This is where the dissatisfaction and the lack of energy is coming from.
Yeah.
So I asked myself, well, where is the joy? And every day I would show up at my desk when I did come back saying, well, where is the joy for me today? And literally just did any creative project that just brought me some joy. And what it happened to be was I spent an entire month on, it's a passion project that I do for charity based on my dogs, because they're Shetland sheepdogs. So it's quite a niche, not very well known breed. But we have like a real community online. We're very obsessed. Anything that's got a sheltie on it, we just love it. And so I was creating this book with people's stories of shelties and all their pictures. And we raise money for rescue charities and things like that. And I just spent an entire month doing it because it was the only thing that made me smile every single day. And obviously I didn't do that for the rest of time. We're nearly getting on for a year later, and I can't just keep working on this one project. But it's the thread that kind of I use going forward every single day. I ask myself, where is that joy?
And as you say that, it sort of makes me think about how often people forget what is their passion project.
Yeah.
What is that thing that they do just for the sake of doing it? There is no outcome necessarily to it. It's not going to. It may earn money, but that's not necessarily the point of it. It's something that they just enjoy doing.
I think it's really important to have those projects that don't, particularly, I mean, when I was a freelance graphic designer, I noticed this myself, that all the things that I loved doing just for fun, they kind of fell away. The more you were trying to chase the work and you were trying to just get clients, then it just meant that you just didn't have it in you. You didn't care enough to do anything for fun, which then kind of, you just lose your whole practice. You lose any joy in the space.
And I guess it kind of links to that sort of meaning and purpose. So what brings you meaning? What brings you purpose? What brings you bliss? What brings you joy? And when we're able to either combine those things and find that sweet spot in our jobs where we're able to do the thing that brings us joy some of the time, most of the time, a part of the time, then there is something really lovely about that. And if we can't do that in our work, then being able to do it outside of our work at a level that keeps us topped up. Because I think, all of that self-care stuff is great if we're kind of okay. But if we're below okay, and I don't know what that line is or how those levels kind of work out, but if we're below okay, then we need something a bit deeper to restore our systems.
Yeah, I think it's about realizing that I know it's really cliche to say you can't pour from an empty cup, but you kind of can't. I mean, particularly with my dog, I've even found this, that I call it my stress bucket, because he has a really big stress bucket that's like overflowing all the time because of his anxiety due to
Yeah.
our neighbors and things. And it's always kind of just overflowing, and then one thing will tip him over the edge, and you just don't know what that thing is going to be. But it's, how do we empty that bucket so that things don't rock the boat as much? And
Yeah.
it's the same with self-care and joy and just having energy. What are the things that do bring you some joy? Because those are the things that energize us, because
Yeah.
they're not part of our responsibilities, they're not things that are burdens, they're not things that we have to do, they're things that we want to do.
Yeah. And I love this idea of, having something visual like an anxiety bucket where we can go, visually, how full is my
Yeah.
bucket today? And what do I need to do to empty that out? And kind of going, is my bliss work the stuff that empties that bucket? So I
Yeah.
can do a bit more bliss to empty that bucket to
Hmm.
keep the kind of equilibrium going. Because I think, when you talk about burnout, I think part of what happens is we just keep going
Yeah.
and we stop registering the signals that our system's sending us about the fact that we need to stop, we need to
Yeah.
pause. And sometimes we get ill, whether that's a cold, a flu, or something more serious that kind of forces us to stop. And sometimes it's other things
Yeah.
like panic attacks and anxiety that kind of
Hmm.
goes, you can't be in stressful situations
Yeah.
because you're not full enough.
Your body is always trying to tell you something.
Mm,
It's just
mm,
whether we actually stop and listen to it. And I think if you don't stop and listen to it, it will force you to stop in some way or another. Because I know it really did for me with the panic attacks. But I think it also means that because we don't listen to our body when it really needs it, we don't know what our body is telling us when we're in that joy, when we are energized. We just don't know
mm,
what it looks or feels like, because
mm.
we never allow ourselves to get to that point.
Yeah, and there's something there about connecting with the body, but how
Yeah.
do we, on a day-to-day basis, just tune in to our bodies? Now, there are people that do, I don't know, yoga and stuff. I don't know what that
Yeah.
stuff is, but they do stuff,
Meditation and things like that.
yeah, that just allow them to kind of go, oh, this is what my body's
Yeah.
saying. This is what it's talking to me about. And a bit of the work that I'm doing at the moment is really leaning into, or what's the story of the body? What's it trying to tell
Oh,
us?
wow. Yeah.
And how can we lean into that story to kind of work with that story like we might
Hmm.
do with narrative coaching? I'm kind of looking at what's this hybrid version of these two things.
I've found that in my own facing my fears, clearing limiting beliefs and things, this kind of personal transformational journey I've been on, I've also found that things like memories are stored in my body
Mm,
and they mean something. So, like, I have a tendonitis injury that came up, I think I was at school, high school, and it then, when the situation disappeared at the time, the tendonitis just healed overnight. And at the time, I didn't obviously know what that was about. But throughout the years, it flares up. And in these last couple of years, while I've been really looking at what is my body trying to tell me, what is going on, and clearing stuff, I realized that the tendonitis is trying to tell me when I'm trying to run away from something.
mm.
And now I can spot that and see that. And as soon as it flares up, I'm like, okay, what am I trying to run away from? What am I avoiding? But we don't know what other parts of the body are trying to tell us something in that way.
Yeah, and I think this. I mean, I love that because it's something that we can anchor onto. So I've got
Yeah.
on my right ankle, it gets sore when I'm stressed, and I haven't noticed that I'm stressed.
Hmm.
So every now and again, I go, "Oh, my ankle's sore." And I go, "Oh, wait a minute, what am I stressed
Yeah.
about? I'm not facing. Okay, it's that, right? Go deal with that." And in a couple of days, it's less sore. And I guess we're kind of part of what we're talking about here is, well, how do you tune into the rest of the system
Yeah.
to hear what is being said in it? So when we're in that blissful, joyful activity, how do we tune into what's happening in our body when we're in that state? so that we can notice it and feed it and pay attention to it and grow it?
I think it's one of those things that joy state for me creates a lot of silence. So all the negative inner self-talk that's always going on, that monologue, it just goes really quiet.
Mm.
And that stillness is where I find that I can then hear something that's much deeper than the ego. It's much deeper than any of that self-talk that maybe isn't very nice, that inner critic. I read recently, I think it was in Glennon Doyle's Untamed book, she was talking about how she started meditation and she would sink down, and you'd sink and sink and sink, and below that there's that stillness. And she was saying, maybe it's God, maybe it's herself, it doesn't really matter, but you can hear something that has that kind of clarity that tells you what you really need.
Yeah. I was watching Wim Hof on the TV the other night doing his Iceman stuff. And one of the things that he was saying was, when you're in that cold water, everything else shuts down and there is a silence. And that's kind of the space that he didn't say he was going for, but it kind of made me think about those moments where I get into that really quietness and you kind of go, oh, there's something there.
Yeah.
That's just so still. And I talk about, you can hear the silence.
Yes. Yeah, because we live such busy lives. There's so much noise in the world, and everyone wants a piece of us, and there's like social media and like posts are just coming up all the time. And it's actually in that moment of stillness and quiet that you can hear yourself, possibly for the first time ever.
And I remember when we had the first lockdown, and you suddenly went, wait a minute, I can hear birds, and I can hear this, and I can hear that, and there was all of this sound that was normally drowned out by the planes and the cars, and it was really interesting. And every now and again, I go, how do we tune into that sound and not that kind of ambient noise of life sound? And I guess that's kind of tuning into bliss, isn't it? And tuning into joy.
I think for me, it really is the key to everything, because it's one of those things that's so magnetic to other people. They see you being joyful, they want to claim a bit of that for themselves and be joyful. So it kind of ripples out to everyone. But it's just one of those things, it releases all those positive, happy hormones that just make you feel good and you want more and more of it. So it's like the key to finding, for me, it's been the key to finding more creative flow. All my ideas come through so much better now when I'm in that state of joy. And I notice that when I'm not, when I'm really like forcing an idea, things don't flow. Like if I'm trying to write something, it sounds like, my cat or my dog could have written it so much better. It's just like you're trying to draw blood from a stone. Whereas in that sort of bliss state, that joy, that flow state, it just comes so effortlessly and it sounds amazing, and you just think, oh wow, I've done this in 2 minutes what took me 2 hours. So kind of time collapses in on itself as well when you're having that fun.
Yeah, because I know, so Mihaly talks about when we're in the flow state, we lose a sense of time.
Yes, definitely.
But there is something also about when you're in the flow state, as you said, time collapses or speeds up or slows down, whichever way you kind of look at it, and we're able to achieve more in less. So a question that I'm really curious about is, what is it that you do? What's your practice to get into that flow? Because I imagine that people watching and listening will be going, well, this is great. Camilla's kind of got this down and she's able to write these huge articles in moments. How do we get there? And I recognize that each of our journeys to bliss, to joy, is going to be different. But what's your journey to that space?
So what I've found is there's no real one size fits all. We all find our own unique ways of doing it, but also it's not just one answer for me. There will be some days when I can access it in a certain way, and other days when that way doesn't work and I need to try something else. So meditation is one of the things that really does help me just kind of calm down all the chatter and just get into flow. But what I've done fairly recently that really makes a difference is I've created what I call a love list. So anything that I find that I love, whether it's a book, it's a song, it's TV, a design, an illustration, whatever it is, I just write these down on the list, and I've got different sections for different things. And there'll always be something there that I can access, because sometimes you can't listen to your happy playlist. You're not in the mood. But there may be something else you could do, like for me, eating chocolate. So getting that endorphin release would give me enough of a boost that I could then listen to the happy music, and then I would get into my state of flow. So it's kind of like you create your own pick and mix of all the things that you love, and you can just go to that list anytime. Because I don't know about you, but when I'm in that state of, oh, I can't focus, I can't concentrate, I feel rubbish, you can't remember the things you love. It's like it's just go out of your head, and it's like, what really makes me feel like all things are possible, or what makes me happy, and you just can't bring anything to mind. So having that list, I know it sounds really kind of random that you've actually written down these are the things I love, but it's actually a really good reminder when you just can't remember, your mind goes blank.
I think there's something really, I mean, anybody that knows me knows that I'm an avid journaler. And whether it's on my tablet or my notebooks, and I always buy more notebooks than I actually need, and they're kind of hidden around the house for those special moments. But there's something about capturing things in writing that has a strength to it.
It activates a different part of your brain.
Yeah.
Because I did a CPD in journal therapy, and they were talking about how it takes journaling and diary writing, and it adds a kind of reflective piece that makes it more therapeutic. And they were saying that you can do it typed, but it's so much better when it's handwritten, because of the different parts of the brain that start to fire up when you're writing by hand. It just adds to it. There's more synapses. I can't pronounce the word. Flowing. It just adds to the experience. It helps you think more and be more creative.
And when you have a list, it means you can look at it, you can see it, you can stick it up. It can be
visual reminder
around you, as opposed to you having to go and find that memory.
I think also it's kind of like because a lot of people, we've heard of this dark night of the soul, where suddenly, or like a midlife crisis where you're like, I don't know who I am anymore. But if you do this, maybe you want to collate it in like scrapbook form. You've got like pictures and things, and you've really made it beautiful. You've then got this thing that you can look at and say, this is who I am in the world. On those days where you feel lost and things have gone wrong, you can come back to that. It's like a kind of homing beacon.
Homing beacon. I was thinking of the word anchor. It's like this little anchor into your happiness. You can just kind of get it out and go, right, this is it. And I think, because the other thing about making lists is it also triggers the reticular activating system?
Yes, your RAS.
It's going to make us
you then
look
focus
for it.
in on things.
So it's like when we think, oh, I like that music, then we start going, well, what's the other music that I like, and what are the other genres? And then
it tells your brain to start looking for more things like that.
And I think that, because it also makes me think about, I don't do this, but there's that whole kind of 5 a.m. club stuff where they say you get up at 5 a.m. and you have an hour's ritual that you do to prime you for your day. And I was just thinking, if you've got a love list of the music you like, the images that you like, the fabrics that you like,
make it really tactile. That's amazing.
And then in the morning, you could actually, as part of your having your coffee, you can just kind of flick through this thing, and it kind of, you go, right, this is me priming myself for my day.
And also for creative people who are very visual and tactile, it's one of those things you could use it as a source of inspiration. Just flip to a page. What have I got on here that I can work with? And it will spark something new. You can take it out to different places, because sometimes even just taking your your book of you outside and then opening it up, that will spark something new than if you were already in your office where you're always spending time. It's just about remembering who you are, and I love the idea of doing it in the morning,
Yeah.
kind of like as a sort of coming back to yourself. That's what I use meditation for, as a sort of centering and grounding myself for the day. But I really love that idea of flicking through it in the morning, so I think I might start doing that myself.
Because I've got a book. I haven't got it to hand, but I've got a book that I've started pulling together. So I'm just having a look around. No, it's not in this room. A friend of mine, Todd, gave it to me as a gift, and his partner Rebecca makes these books, and they're these beautiful handmade books, and there are lots of different types of pages. So some of the pages are pages from a book or images, some of them different types of paper, and then some of the pages of little pockets with other little notebooks inside them.
Sounds amazing.
And I decided to add to it, and like I had a leaf I found I really liked, so I stuck that in there
Yeah.
and bits of material that I like. And I'm like, oh, well, I wonder what else I can add to this, so it starts to be more about me and that
Yeah.
reflection, and that's something you can go back to. And I love this idea of it being a book of you.
Definitely. And
Yeah.
also that is a lovely idea, because we collect things. We do it more as children, where we'll like go to the beach and pick up a load of stones, but I think maybe as adults we forget that we can pick up a beautiful leaf, like you said, because we just think it's really nice. And just collecting those kind of things and using it as a way of remembering the simplicity of life, because life can be really complex. We've got all these computers and our jobs, there's so much to do, so many responsibilities and burdens, and then you open up your book and you've got a beautiful leaf and you just remember what it feels like to walk through the trees and hear the wind and the rustle of the
Yeah.
leaves and things, and it just transports you to another place.
Yeah. And that's just reminded me when I did an NLP and hypnotherapy course years and years ago now. And one of the exercises we did, we had to write positive things about ourselves. And I think it was we had to write 75 statements.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, yeah. And I remember us going, I like how I dress.
Yeah.
I got one. And they were saying, and the teacher was saying, ask people around you and develop this list, because it was this idea that some of the work that we did was quite challenging, and we could doubt ourselves within that environment. But if we've got this thing where we go, but this is me when I'm at my best, let me remember that and kind of think about that. And I guess it's a little bit like things like timeline therapy or future pacing, where we go, at our best, what are we like, what are we doing, how have we created things around us, so how can we tap back into that, which brings us all the way back round to being in bliss and being in joy.
And what you said there about coming up with things that about being at our best, I think also gratitude itself is another really good way of getting into the joy. It can be really hard at first. Some people like to do a list of gratitude in the morning or in the evening, but it's one of those things that the more you cultivate it, the easier it gets, but also you can just come back to it and remember. I mean, I know someone who likes to do a jar of good things that have happened to them, and anytime they're having a bad day, they just open the jar and start reading.
Yep. Yeah. And what's funny is these things sound simplistic, and so I think we often go, well, that's so easy, I don't need to do it to remember. But actually there is a beauty in the simplicity
Well, our
of
brains
it.
have this tendency to kind of forget the good stuff and just focus on the bad.
Mm.
Hence why we have that moment of, I don't know what music makes me feel good. I don't know who I am when I'm at my best. We just, like, mind goes blank. We can only think of those negative things. So actually, yeah, some of these things seem so obvious, like just writing down good things that have happened in your day. But actually, we need the reminders, because it's not our default state of being to tune into the joy. It's something that we have to work at and cultivate.
And I think when you said cultivate, that sprung a thought in my mind. I'm trying to remember the thought that I had before then. Oh, I dropped it. What was that thought?
It's live, it happens.
It was something about was it it's not that easy. Oh yeah, the way that we focus on the negative stuff and we focus on what we haven't done. Oh no, it wasn't that at all. I remember it now. I've got it. That when we capture things like our gratitude, to go, it's our gratitude.
Yes.
Because I think sometimes we start gratitude lists. Or no, I'll own it. There are times when I've started gratitude list or gratitude writing, and I've gone, "But what should I be putting in this?"
Yeah, what you
something?
think other people want
Yeah,
you or expect you to put in. Yeah.
yeah. And then I gotta go, well, actually, I can be grateful for the fact that there was milk this morning, so I could have my
Yeah.
cornflakes, and that could be it. It can be that's my
It's
gratitude.
really
Or
important, actually. I think people forget to take ownership of your own happiness and gratitude. We're so busy listening to what we think we should want and how we think we should feel because of what everyone else says or expects or judges, that actually, yeah, that's like a really radical way of taking ownership for your own gratitude. And when I was doing journal therapy, what they said is if you're doing any kind of list, you just don't stop. You set a timer for maybe 30 minutes and you just keep going. And what they said is if you can't think of anything new, just keep writing the last thing that you could think of and just keep going and going, just writing that one thing really, really repetitive until it unlocks the new thoughts. Because otherwise we just get caught up in, oh, everyone thinks I should be happy because of this, because of that. But like you said, yeah, you can be happy that you had milk in the fridge to make your cup of tea this morning.
Yeah.
Why not? That's something that makes you happy and grateful. Then yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And it reminds me of I did a project, I don't know, 15, 20 years ago now. I'm not very good with when things were. Once they've happened, they've kind of happened, and that's it. I've moved on.
Get it.
But I did a project with a gentleman called Robert Jarvis, and we were working in schools, and it was part of creative partnerships at the time. And we had to keep a blog on the project. And he said, but here's what you do. You're only going to blog for 5 minutes. And the beginning, you're just going to write, I don't know what I'm going to write, and I'm going to keep writing until something comes. I don't know what I'm going to write. I'm going to keep writing until something comes. Because you just do that until something comes, and then you just keep going, and you set your timer for 5 minutes. And what would happen is some days you'd only do that for 5 minutes, and you'd only have that phrase. And other days, an hour later, you'd be in deep flow.
Yeah.
It was that thing of not thinking about what I want to write, but allowing what I want to write to emerge and unfold.
Yes. Free writing is really, really powerful. We have this kind of, I don't know if it's an expectation or we just force ourselves to think, oh, I must write something that's really profound every single day. I mean, I journal, or I was journaling every single day for over a year. And there'd be days where I'd turn up and I'd just force myself to write. And rather than it being really profound like I wanted it to be, it was just, this is everything that happened in my day. And when I was flicking back through it, it was like, well, yeah, that's interesting as a reminder, but it didn't really do anything for me. So I gave myself permission to actually stop. I don't have to write every day, but I can write in my journal when I feel like I want to, when it moves me. And you find that there's a quality to your writing when you're not pressured, that things just flow in a different way.
And that word permission, I always find it really interesting when we give ourselves permission, how it unlocks things.
Yeah. It's like we need to give ourselves permission even to just be happy.
Yeah.
Because we forget that it's something that we're allowed to do. We've been told that we have to be so serious and we can't do this and that and the other. But permission itself is just so powerful. The amount of things you think that you're blocked for, so many things, but actually just giving yourself permission, going maybe back to that inner child and saying, you have permission to do this thing. You have permission to go roll down the hill. Suddenly you're like, oh wow, this has opened up a whole new world. I didn't have to go digging in the dirt, healing loads of wounds. I just needed to give myself permission to do the thing.
And I think when we give ourselves permission, I also see that as an act of self-love.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think that's part of the unlocking. It's like we give ourselves permission, we give ourselves love, and we go, oh wait a minute, I am important, I am special, I
Yeah.
am I am me, and me is great. Right, I'm going to go do this thing, and it kind of turns on a level of energy that we hadn't noticed existed
Mhm.
before.
Definitely. Because you know what? The thing that really gets me about people who don't want to chase their joy, for me, I look at it that I am the person that I am going to spend the most time with in my entire life. I need to listen to me and what I want above everyone else because I spend so much time with me. But also, if I'm not happy, then I'm going to get to the end of my life and think, oh, well, yeah, I did tons of things for everyone else, but what about me?
Mm,
And just tuning into, you know, what you said there about putting ourselves first and just prioritizing us above anything. It's really, really important. And we just forget it. We've been told that we aren't important, but actually, things flow in a different way when you do make yourself your number one.
yeah, and I recognize that when I look after me, I'm a nicer person to be around.
Definitely.
So everybody benefits. When
Yeah.
I'm selfish, everybody
Yeah.
benefits.
It sounds really backwards, but actually, in setting those really healthy boundaries and in being a bit more selfish and just prioritizing yourself, actually, you are a better person. People can interact with you in a different way because you're not tired, you're not
Mm,
spent, you're not exhausted, you're not irritable or resentful of anything. You actually have so much more to give them
mm,
when you just take that little bit. And yeah, at first it can sound really harsh, it can feel really harsh, but I mean, like, take for example, my mum used to call me every single day, and it was starting to get to the point where she was interrupting Zoom calls and interviews and things I was doing, and I had to say to her, look, please don't ring me, like, check in what I'm doing, that, you know, just so you know what times I'm doing things, because she'd just ring any time, she wouldn't check in, and she didn't like that. But what happened was she said, "Oh, well, I won't call you then. You call me." So I don't call every day because sometimes I have a lot of things that I'm doing and I'm busy. But when we talk, instead of it being just a 5 minutes and I'm a bit ratty because she's interrupted my flow, I've actually set time. So we have a
mm.
longer chat, it's more meaningful. And yeah, at first she wasn't very happy about the situation. But now when I call her, she's like, "Oh, it's so nice to hear from you." And we just have a
Yeah.
great time. So it can feel really, really hard at first when you're setting those boundaries, but in the long run, it is worth it.
And I think there's something there about the intention. What
Yeah.
because it sounds like the intention, or what I'm hearing is that the intention was to have these quality conversations at a time when you were available to have them,
Yes.
as opposed to in between
Yeah.
things happening. Yeah.
Well,
And
it
it can
just
feel
creates that sense of, I'm doing this because I really want to. I want to have a better, it deepens your connections with people
mm,
because your intention is cleaner when you interact with them.
yeah. Yeah, and it kind of makes me think about our intention with joy and being really
Yeah.
clear about what that intention is, and that cleanness when we're doing things for a, a clean reason. I can't think of a better word than clean, but it's like it's not infected by an ulterior desire.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
nothing
You
else
don't have
going
any
on.
like hidden agendas or
Mm,
ulterior motives.
mm,
You're just doing it from a place of pure love and joy. And it really, as you said, it is really clean, your
yeah,
intentions for things. I think people can connect to your vibe in a different way when they know that you're coming from that space rather than that you're coming at it but you've actually got this hidden agenda over
yeah,
here.
yeah.
It really does change the game.
And it makes me think about this idea of, if people are seeking to come from a place of joy, it's about, well, what does that joy mean to you? What does it really mean to you? Not what you think it should mean,
Yeah.
not what are the activities you think should be joyful, but what actually brings you joy. Because for some
Hmm.
people, it will be reading or watching a movie or listening to a piece of classical music. For other people, it will be, I don't know, eating a raisin, whatever it
Yeah.
might be. But it's like, don't give yourself permission
Yeah.
to go with your joy.
That's what I
Uh,
found with people I work with when I work with these creatives. One of the first things that I always ask them is, what is your vision? What is your biggest vision? Like the perfect day in your life? And it's
mm,
different for everyone. Some of them are saying, oh, I want to get on the BBC and I want to hit the New York Times bestseller list. And it's all big and they're making millions and blah, blah, blah. And then some of them are like, well, actually, I just want to buy a 2-bedroom cottage by the sea and wake up and have a cup of tea every morning and write for an
mm,
hour. Like everyone's dream is different, and we all think, or we forget that we can cultivate our own dreams and have our own version of happiness. It doesn't
mm,
have to be like this cookie cutter approach that we all love the same things.
yeah. And we get bombarded by social media and business
Yeah,
books and business gurus and success gurus that we kind of go, oh, wait a minute, I need that dream, as
yeah,
opposed to, but what's my dream? And I think, there's something about when we're really quiet and we listen to that inner voice, it's going to speak that dream. And
yeah,
then it's about cultivating that and growing that and leaning
yeah,
into it and loving that
mm,
and allowing it to be protected and boundaried from the world of noise, so
yeah.
you can grow it into something.
And I think that's where it's really important to start to learn to get still, going all the way back to the beginning of the conversation, because then you start to learn, and this is something that I find really, really important. What does a yes feel like in your body? And
Oh.
because it's something different for everyone else. I mean, you can look at pictures and just kind of flick through, and there'll be like a puppy, and it's like, oh my God, that feels like a yes. You can kind of train yourself to learn what it feels like, so that when you're in other situations and you're looking at, like, maybe it's a job offer or whatever it is, and you can say, am I feeling that yes in my body? Does it feel like a yes for me? And it just
Mm,
takes you out of that logical thinking brain and really into your heart and your gut, which is where the real answers are for your true happiness. So I spent a lot of time personally working on, do I know what it feels like when it's a yes in my body? And sometimes it's one of those things that you just need more time, more information. You kind of need a little bit of space away from the thing. But when you know what it feels like, you
mm,
just don't question it.
yeah, yeah, and that comes all the way back to paying attention to our
Yeah,
bodies and
really does.
listening to what our bodies are saying to us, so we can hear those yeses and
Yeah.
we can
Because I
hear the
think we spend
no's
a
as
lot of
well.
time listening to the pain rather than
Mm,
listening to the joy and the yes.
yeah.
So it can take a little bit of time to know what that feels like. And to begin with, it can feel like a really quiet yes. It just feels like, oh, that feels like something I would like. But over time, you can really amplify it and you can read something. I mean, I'm going to be publishing a book later this week. And I remember opening the email, they were looking for contributors, someone that I know. And I remember reading it. And it was like, oh, I feel that right in here. Yes, absolutely. Yes. But a year ago, if that had happened, I would have been like, oh, that sounds interesting. Am I sure? Because it was a quiet yes.
Mm.
So it does take time to really amplify that and know what it feels like, but it's so worth it.
And there's I'm the course I'm doing, physical intelligence. It's run by Claire Dale, among others, but uh, Claire was delivering part of the workshop, the introductions, and she was talking about, the states in the body, and we did an exercise where you say yes and you just keep amplifying your
Yeah,
yes until you're kind of jumping around screaming
I love that.
hell yeah, and you just kind of go, oh my god, I'm zinging,
Yeah.
and my whole being is just alive with that affirmation.
Mhm.
And then, like you said, when things come our way, it's like, is that kind of a yes,
Yes.
or is that a kind of a yes because I should do that thing, or is my whole body going, do this, go
Yeah.
this way?
It's like a really good filter for
Mm,
yourself, and also it also helps you because sometimes you get a full body yes and it's something that's really illogical and you're like, why would I do this? But when your body is telling you yes, you just jump in. It's like that
yeah,
leap of faith. It really helps you just follow it.
yeah. So Camilla, we have been talking and talking, and I could talk to you forever. So we'll definitely come back and do
Yes, I'd love to.
another episode. You talked about you're publishing a book there, so
Yes.
I'd love to hear a little bit of where we can get it or look out for it, but also where people can reach out to you, contact you, and find out more about what you do and how they might work with you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, on Friday, I've contributed a chapter to a book called Sacred Redesign, which is all about how people have redesigned their own lives to follow what they want rather than what society tells us. So that will be available on Friday on Amazon. But in order to work with me, find out more about me, you can go to my website at www.camillafellisarnold.com, or I'm mainly on LinkedIn as well. So I'm pretty sure there's only one Camilla Fellis Arnold. So just search for me and I'll pop up. I'm wearing a hat. They're the two main places you will find me.
Brilliant. Awesome. Camilla, it's been an absolute pleasure. I've taken some really interesting things away from this conversation, but it's also really helped me to, I guess, reaffirm some things as well. So it's been brilliant. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.